is Suit Up Sports. Suit Up Sports. Where opinions are as sharp as a tailored suit. No fluff, no gimmicks, just unfiltered, hard-hitting takes on sports and a whole lot more. It's time to suit up. Now here's your host, DJ the Suit Stout.
Welcome to Suit Up Sports. I'm DJ the Suit Stout, along with my boy Mark Yarbro today, filling in for Frank Garcia. Frank is on his annual fall time, springtime, summertime, wintertime golf tour, and he took his golf game to Dallas this weekend. And actually attended the Cowboy Redskin game. I don't know who he was pulling for, but I'm guessing the Cowboys, since he was there in Dallas and probably got sucked up by.
Yeah, he probably got caught up in all the emotion in the championship talk that I'm sure that's going on in Dallas today after that performance.
No doubt. Hopefully he wore his sunscreen due to the high beam sun that Jerry Jones refuses to fix.
Yes.
Before we get to the Panthers, that is the damnedest thing. Like,
I know.
Like he's got this multi-billion-dollar stadium, and I've been there, and it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yet he refuses to fix the sun.
Get some blinds, Jerry.
Just blinds,
get something, a curtain, or something.
Like, for God's sake,
something.
Like
man.
the players. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like it's ridiculous.
It's almost like to the comparison of here, where the players, even the Panther players, hate the turf. They want grass field, but David Tepper, because of the multi-use of that stadium now, won't go back to grass, even though the players want it. The players have told Jerry Jones, please do something about the sun, and yet he won't. And he won't pay Micah Parsons, and he won't get his damn sun fixed.
And you know what's funny? There's no doubt in my mind, and you know, when I'm not doing this, I own a marketing company. And there's no doubt in my mind that he could go to one of these tent companies in Dallas and say, tint that window at no charge and put your logo on it. It won't affect anything. It won't affect nothing. And he won't do it.
As much as a marketing guy that he is, and it just, I don't get it, man. I mean, it's like he's doing it out of spite.
Right.
Like, you complained about it, or I'm not going to do anything about it.
Yeah. It's like your parents when you want something when you're young, and then you do all you're supposed to do, and they still won't do it just to prove a lesson. But anyway, we'll talk a little bit about that game later. Panthers Jets. We talked on you and I talked Monday, and Frank and I on Friday about this game, and we talked about how the Panthers had been making and climbing over these hurdles the last few weeks, and the big one that they had yet to climb was winning on the road. We talked. Bryce was 1-15 or whatever on the road. Canales not much better on the road, and they had an opportunity going to New York against a winless Jet team with no offense, their best receiver out, and you felt like, if they were going to get a road win, this is a great opportunity. I also felt it was a trap because, the Jets defense is legit. They have a very good defense. They were, a minute and a half away from beating Tampa Bay, a minute away from beating Pittsburgh, a minute away from beating Denver. So, they have played well against good teams. Their offense is just anemic. But it did scare me as a trap game. But man, they cleared the hurdle. They got a road win, and it wasn't pretty.
No,
it was definitely not pretty, but both defenses played great. And Panthers on offense did just enough to get the job done. But what do you think about them getting that first road W?
Well, we talked about it. Yeah, it was ugly. And Dave Canales, I'm sure, is going to say today there are no ugly wins in the NFL. Any way you can get it, and I completely get that.
I agree.
If you had to watch it, it was ugly.
Yeah,
it was not. It was nothing to write home about. But defensively, for the Panthers, they did what you should do to a bad offense. They took advantage of it. And we talked about the one thing last week, DJ, was they need to get after the quarterback more. Well, they found an offensive line that they could get after yesterday. And they got to whether it was, Justin Fields, whether it was Tyrod Taylor, didn't matter who the quarterback was. They got after him. Derek Brown played out of his mind yesterday.
Yeah, he
was great. So defensively, you did what you should do. Offensively, you mentioned the Jets are a pretty legit defense. There's no shame in not being able to get it going. The run game thing is going to be interesting to see what happens going forward. It felt disjointed yesterday with the alternating possessions, and it felt like anytime Rico was in there, he looked like he'd been looking. Chuba didn't look great, rusty, whatever you want to say it. So I'm going to be very interested to see going forward. Does does Rico Dowdle eventually become the guy? I know Canales certainly didn't want to commit to that last week. I don't know if what we saw yesterday changes things, but overall, yeah, this team trying to get over 500, trying to win a road game. They can check some more boxes.
Yep.
And again, there are no bad, ugly wins in the NFL. Any way you can get it, you get it, and they did.
I agree. And let's start with the defense, because we normally start with the offense, but the defense yesterday had several great performances. Like you mentioned, they finally get to the quarterback. I think they came into this game last in the NFL in sacks. We knew that the Jets had a problem giving up sacks, whether it be because of O-line or because Justin Fields holds the ball too long. And the Panthers had 6 sacks yesterday. They matched the points scored by the Jets, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So they had 6 sacks, and you mentioned Derek Brown, 7 tackles, 4 solo, 2 sacks, 3 passes deflected. There's not a defensive lineman, and you heard Mark Schlereth say it, and I get pretty much every pundit you've seen since the game yesterday saying it. Derek Brown right now is playing at an all-pro level, whether it's throwing guys, like you said, out of the club. Whether
that's how Schlereth said that in the first minute of the game yesterday.
He's tossing dudes, and he's getting to the quarterback. 2 sacks yesterday, and we talked Monday when you were on the show about how Derek Brown went to the coaches about let me get after the quarterback on third downs in particular, and we saw him with 2 sacks yesterday, 3 pass deflected, and we talked earlier before in the year and before the season about who's the leader on this team. Is there a leader on defense? Is there a leader on offense? And we knew that with a young team and with a lot of new players, it was going to take time for somebody to kind of take that role. And on defense, Derek Brown has not only taken it by his play on the field, but he's been a lot more outspoken this year as well than we've seen in the past. And maybe it was missing a year last year and getting to kind of look and soak everything in and figure some things out. But, I love the quote he had after the game where they said something to him about a victory Monday. And he said, there's no victory Mondays. I mean, we're still in the middle of a process, and with the process, there's no victory Mondays. Yeah. We're happy we got the win, and now we move on to Buffalo. There's no victory Mondays.
I think that's why he said that, because he knew he probably looked at the schedule and went, we don't have time to get happy about what we've done. We got the Bills coming in here who are going to be ticked off about having to stew for 2 weeks, losing that game in Atlanta. But no, defensively, he is playing at such a high level right now. And we talked about it, before the season started. You look at the offseason, what Dan Morgan did defensively, bringing in free agents, and this defense, it's everybody knows the story. It was historically bad last year.
Yep.
And Derek Brown being back is basically as if he went out and signed a free agent.
No question.
That's like what you're getting, added him back to the mix.
Yep.
And it's made a huge difference.
Yep.
The run defense speaks for itself, how much better. It's night and day better than it was last year.
Yep.
And now, yes, the Jets line certainly helps. You build off of that. Hopefully guys start making a habit of getting to the quarterback, because until yesterday, that was really the biggest knock on this defense, was they weren't getting there enough. They get 6 yesterday. I don't know if I'm not saying they're going to get 6 every week, because they will play better offensive lines. But again, you did what you should do to a bad offensive line and take advantage of it. They did that.
Yeah. And, a couple other guys on defense that I want to give a shout out to. Morig has just been a great signing by Dan Morgan. I mean, again, he's becoming a leader on that defense. 6 tackles yesterday. He had a sack. When they blitz him, it seems that if he's not getting the quarterback down, he's at least disrupting quarterback. He had one yesterday where he had him and missed him, and they ended up turning it into a pretty good game.
They're tackling better, DJ. That's the other thing is last year the tackling was just atrocious. And, Nick Scott, I think, was a big problem there. He didn't tackle well. The guy they brought in from Buffalo, it didn't work out in the secondary last year.
Yep.
He didn't tackle well, but their tackling it's not great. There are still missed tackles to be seen out there, but they've cleaned it up a good bit than what we saw last year.
Yeah, and the inside linebacker play, which we talked at the beginning of the year that it's probably the worst linebacker room in the league, we thought, and then after the first 3 games that proved our point. We couldn't cover a tight end. We were missing tackles. Wallace was out of position. And now in the last few weeks, we've seen Roseboom and Wallace turn their game up. I think when Roseboom decided to not be the play caller on defense. And he didn't want to think that much. He wants to react. And Wallace likes that position of being the guy calling the plays. I guess it gets him dialed in, and that's made a big difference. And, Roseman was 7 tackles yesterday. Wallace, I think, was the 3rd or 4th highest rated Panther defender yesterday. And then Nick scored, and it was good to see a guy, our second round draft choice out of Texas A&M has been playing really well. He's been getting close to the quarterback. And yesterday with a sack and a half, Princely Nealon had a half a sack yesterday. So seeing some of these young guys get in there and get to the quarterback was nice to see as well. But like you said, they don't have any time to sit back and pat themselves on the shoulder. Buffalo's coming in off a bye week, off a loss to the Falcons. So yeah, you're right. They're going to be pissed off, ready to roll. Their head coach, I'm sure, still has a chip on his shoulder for the with the Panthers, and
they're going to be playing basically a road game at home.
Yeah,
Sunday. That place will be full of Bills fans. It will be overrun with them.
I think I've had 50 ticket requests for that game, and they all been by Buffalo fans. Yeah. So I haven't given any of them anything. So they've
had to go silent count on offense. DJ,
right.
We've seen that have to happen.
And guess what? It may not be Bryce Young playing quarterback yesterday.
True.
That's another thing that one of the negatives that came out of the game yesterday. And look, Bryce struggled yesterday, 15 for 25, 138 yards and a touchdown, 62.8 quarterback rating. So he, it wasn't his best game. But again, I give the Jets defense a lot of credit for that. We were without Damian Lewis as well at guard. So I think it was our 5th different offensive lineup this year. Yeah. Hopefully he'll be back for the Buffalo game, and it sounds like he probably will be. But Bryce gets cleated in the back of his leg. To me, at first I thought it was just going to be a calf injury, that maybe he just got cleated and he'll shake it off, but ended up being a sprained ankle. X-rays were negative, so it's not broken. He told Rico Dowdle after the game that he was going to be fine.
But he was in a walking boot as he left MetLife Stadium.
He was in a walking boot, so they're doing more tests today. And if he doesn't play, listen, I know Andy Dalton has been there and done that and has been a very good quarterback in the NFL, but Bryce was fighting a rhythm. And again, Jets defense yesterday, I give a lot of credit to. Buffalo's defense, on the other hand, struggles against the run. And I'm leading into the running game because I want to talk about that with you as far as what you just alluded to with Dowdle and Hubbard in the rotation. But Buffalo's a team you can run on. We saw Atlanta run all over them 2 weeks ago. And so, whether Bryce plays or not, you got to think the Panthers are going to really lean on the running game, which is what Canales likes to do anyway. But hopefully Bryce is going to be okay. The offense has just seemed to be getting into a rhythm, and for Bryce not to be out there against the Bills, I think does hurt this team. And Dalton made a good, had that big pass to Leggett yesterday
to clinch it. Yeah,
Leggett had his best game by far as a pro with 9 catches, 92 yards, a touchdown on 11 targets, which we've seen games when he didn't get 1 or 2 targets. He had 11 and hauled in 9 of them, and several of them were contested tough catches. So if we can see that Leggett every game, and since he was down with a hamstring injury or benched or whatever you want to call it, he's come back a different player. He's blocking, which has been great for the run game. He had some really good plays last week in their win against the Cowboys. And then to see what he did yesterday gives Panther fans some hope that maybe this first round receiver that we traded up to get is figuring it out.
Yeah, because you saw flashes last year from him, but that's all it was. It was flashes.
Yeah.
You'd see something, but he couldn't build off of it. The next game, it'd be kind of non-existent. And that's, guy's second year, there's going to be ups and downs, but you want to see him start being more consistent. And yesterday was another reminder of what the guy can do, what he's capable of doing. You just want to see it more. As far as the Bryce thing, it does suck that, he may miss some time here with this ankle. Personally, I don't think the offense is going to change a whole lot, whether he's in or Andy's in.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that Bryce, I think, brings you that Andy doesn't is the mobility factor and the fact in the the ability to run and use his legs. You're not going to see that if Andy is out there. That's just not going to happen. So that's to me, that's the one big thing that you lose with Bryce that you don't have with Andy. But I feel the way this offense is set up, DJ, look, it's about running the football.
No question.
And whether Bryce is the quarterback or Andy's the quarterback, that shouldn't change. They don't I know Jaycee Horn will stretch the field some since he's been in there, but that's not a big part of what they want to do offensively.
Yep.
So I think Andy's very more than capable of going out there, getting the job done against Buffalo, and hopefully Bryce, if it is just one game, great. He's back for the Packers game, but that was the negative that you took away yesterday. Is you don't want to see your starting quarterback leaving the stadium in a walking boot.
No question. And look, the Panthers made kind of a quiet signing this offseason when Hooker got cut from Detroit. Big 6'5" quarterback, big arm, had 2 really good preseasons with Detroit, not this past preseason, but the 2 before that, where he looked great at times, fell out of favor in Detroit for whatever reason. North Carolina kid, like I said, 6'5", can run, rocket arm, so he would be elevated to the backup quarterback. And I know there's a lot of people that think that he still has a pretty bright future in the NFL, so would be interesting to see if he had to get in a game. But I agree with you. I don't think the Panthers' game plan is going to change much, whether it's Dalton or Bryce Young. Running back wise, we said Buffalo has not been good against the run this year. Panthers are running the ball very well. But I didn't like the rotation yesterday because, like you said, Dowdle had 17 rushes, 79 yards, Hubbard 14 for 31. Dowdle averaged 4.6 per carry, Hubbard 2.2. I felt that there was times in that game where they should have stayed with Dowdle when they seemed to be getting into a rhythm. Mm-hmm. And I think that Dowdle's the kind of running back that, and like a lot of running backs, that they got to get lathered up. They got to get into a rhythm. And I think that it sounds great to say that we have 2 good running backs, which we do. This is not a negative towards Hubbard, right, because Chuba's a good running back. But I do think that Dowdle's one of those guys that you have to let him play a few series in a row to get going. And I think there was times where he was on the sideline too long. At one point, I even said to the guys I was watching the game with that maybe Canales is just saving him for the end of the third, fourth quarter where the defense might be tired and they can put him in there and do it. But he continued to kind of do that rotation. They still gained over 100 yards on the ground, right, which is good, and that's always a goal as far as their game plan goes. But I think Dowdle's going to have to get more carries, and I don't mean by 3. And I think he needs to get a couple series in a row to try to get that lather going, because the last 3 games, there really haven't been many running backs in the league better than him. He's probably top 5, and I don't even mean just by yardage. I just mean by the way he's running the ball. It's tough. He's not going down on the first tackle. Usually, I know on the 4th and 1, they stopped him yesterday, but I got to see more Dowdle against Buffalo.
Yeah, and I know Mark Slarett wasn't a big fan of the alternating. He was borderline angry about it today. Yeah. He wanted to see more Dowdle. Yeah, I just wonder how long Dave Canales will kind of ride this until he finally goes, I got to make it. And I guess it's going to be determined production. If Rico Dowdle goes out there against Buffalo again and in his opportunities outshines what Chuba's doing at some point, I think you got to make a call there and ride the guy that's bringing more to the table. And yesterday that was Rico Dowdle. Chuba, again, maybe it was rust. He didn't have that burst. Dowdle runs angry. He just runs with a chip on his shoulder. And he didn't get paid like Chuba Hubbard. He got the Panthers signed him as a 1-year deal. So he's out there proving it. If you don't want me next year, somebody else will see me and want me. And that's no doubt. That's the type of guys that go out there that are looking to make some noise. So
look, he's saying all the right things. That's when you have these situations sometimes in the NFL, the player who had the hot hand who has to take a seat again, or at least not get 25 carries or whatever like he had been getting, they get angry and it causes some turmoil.
Yeah, look what happened in Philadelphia when A.J. Brown doesn't get the football.
Exactly.
He gets ticked off.
Exactly. And Dowdle has handled it great in the locker room through interviews, and it does seem like we do have a really tight-knit running back room. And listen, another guy in that room that I want to give a little credit to is Etienne. We've seen him get better each game, and he had a great punt return yesterday, good kickoff return. You see that he's elusive. I wouldn't even mind seeing him get a few more carries during the game because I think he's earning it. But to me, Dowdle's got to get more carries against the Bills than he did. And 17 sounds like a pretty good number. But when he was getting 25, 26 the previous 2 games, we saw that he had over 200 yards, both games, total yards. So I think they've got to get back to giving him the ball 25 times.
Yeah, you mentioned what the defense towards the end of a game. If you've been pounded on, it just starts wearing on you, and that to me is what I saw the last few weeks with Rico Dowdle. By the end of the game, he was just wearing on these.
Wearing them out.
They were tired of getting hit by him. So that's the one thing we talked about last week. It was going to be curious to see how these two guys were used. I wasn't crazy about the alternating, usage of them yesterday. We'll see if anything changes on Sunday.
Yeah, and another guy that I want to talk about who has just been better than advertised. And I thought when they drafted him, I said this kid's going to be a player. He had been hurt his last year in college, came back late in the year and played great. But Mitchell Evans is a TE1. He's going to be a tight end one. The dude catches everything thrown his way. And Sanders, listen, I know he looks the part and he's shown flashes, but he drops too many balls. Bryce hit him right in the hands yesterday. I think it was Bryce, maybe it was Dalton, but I'm pretty sure it was Bryce. Right in the hands. He drops it on a big play. I want to see Mitchell Evans start getting more balls thrown to him.
I'm with you. I'm good with Mitchell Evans being TE1, as you said. He looks the part, man. He's a big dude. He's got pretty good speed. He runs good routes. He knows when he gets the football, he wants to do some damage to somebody. And that's in this NFL today, DJ, I've said this for the last few years. You have got to be, if you are going to be a team offensively that is going to be really good, you have got to have a really good tight end.
No question.
I don't care where you look across the board right now. Good offenses have really good tight ends. Look what, obviously Jake Ferguson in Dallas. Kelsey goes without saying. Kittle, I know he didn't do anything last night as the first game back, but those are
Goddard with Philadelphia.
Yeah, Trey McBride in Arizona. Yeah. I mean, he's a really good tight end. I mean, the tight end has got to be part of your offense, and I think Mitchell Evans has the makings of that type of guy.
Yeah,
I'm not saying he's going to be, Tony Gonzalez, but I think this team has been so void for so long of a tight end that you had to account for.
Yep.
I think he has the makings of being that type of guy.
I agree. Let's go. You mentioned defense earlier when we gave some flowers to some of the guys that played their butts off yesterday, and we forgot to mention Jaycee Horn, who had 2 interceptions, one of which was as good of an interception you're going to see. He was beat deep, recovered one hand. That's the second one-handed pick of the year. He's playing at an all-pro level as well. Mike Jackson, I thought, had his best game of the year
one in the end zone,
yesterday. Yep. And again, I know they weren't playing a receiving core like they're going to be seeing this week, although Buffalo's receiving core isn't what it used to be with Diggs and those guys. But no, Mike Jackson, I thought, played well. Jaycee Horn continues his stellar play as our cornerback one. But let's look at some numbers real quick, because you mentioned last year, everybody knows Panthers had the worst defense in NFL history statistically. Couldn't tackle, couldn't stop the run. Listen to these stats this year. Through 7 games, the Panthers are 7th in the league with giving up 295 yards a game. That's 7th in the NFL. They're 12th in the league at 21.7 points a game. They allowed 92 yards rushing, which is 9th in the league. They've allowed 203 yards passing per game, which is 10th in the league, and they have 6 interceptions, which is 7th in the league. So a huge turnaround by a defense that last year was putrid. And Dan Morgan and Evero, because a lot of people were on Evero, and I think Evero is a very good defensive coordinator. If you look at when he's had players, whether it be Denver, where he had top 5 defenses, whether it was his first year in Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, I think they were top 10 defense. When he has players, the dude is a good coordinator. Last year, you could have brought any defensive coordinator in the world in here, and they weren't going to be able to fix the issues that they had. And now to see him with some bodies, and Dan Morgan, we've brought this up many times. 2 years ago, they trade Brian Burns, who's having a hell of a year. They trade Brian Burns, and they use the money that they saved to fix the offensive line. This year, they used the free agent money that they had to hopefully what we hope fix the defense. Mm-hmm. And so far, after 7 games with these numbers, is the defense perfect? No. Are there still holes? Yes. Is there still things that they can improve on? Of course. But light years ahead of what they were last year. And, they're fun to watch. And when you have a football team, college or pro, and they have a good defense, it makes watching the game so much more fun, because, look, everybody wants to see the touchdown passes and the great runs and all those things. But when you have a defense that is hard to run on, you're making acrobatic interceptions. And yesterday,
unless you're a Jets fan, you have a really good defense, but your offense is so bad it makes it hard to watch.
Yeah, the Jets just want to watch the defense. Unfortunately, their defense is on the
people go to the concession stand when the offense comes on the field.
Exactly. If they're lucky they do get to watch their defense all game because they're on the field all game. But the Panthers defense is light years ahead of where they were last year, and I think that speaks well and it has a lot to do with why they're 4-3, first winning record they've had, I believe, since 2021, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a long time to not be above 500.
Yeah. And DJ, you knew last year, this offense knew, gosh, if we don't go out there and score 24, 30 points, we got no shot to win a game because our defense, whether they're going to say it publicly or not, they knew they couldn't stop anybody. And it was, I mean, I sat in that press box many Sundays and watched team after team come in there and just run at will against this defense. Bucky Irving, if he played against the Panthers every game last year, being Canton right now, be the Hall of Fame. I mean,
no question.
He's a great running back, but my God, he destroyed the Panthers last year. And he wasn't the only one, but it is you can watch them and tell it's a different vibe. Yes, you said it. There are still things that need to be cleaned up. You mentioned Jaycee Horn. He made great plays, but he was beaten. There was some opportunities yesterday for the Jets to make plays. Tyrod Taylor just underthrew the ball a couple of times. It should have been touchdowns. But they are, when you compare this defense to last year, I don't know if you can't even compare it. It's so much better. It's not great. It's not the 85 Bears,
right? But
compared to what we saw here last year, it's phenomenal.
And they're growing in confidence. And look, we hear Canales and we hear Dan Morgan for the last year and a half talk about the process, the culture. And every coach says that when they take over a job. Every GM says that. And God knows the culture and the process with the Panthers had been completely broken. And now, not only do you see the fruits of their labor, you see that what they were preaching is starting to take place when you hear guys like Derek Brown talk about the process. When you hear, when you see some of these young guys who didn't play as much early in the season, you hear Canales come out and say, I'm on every road to play these young guys. I want to play these young guys. The Panthers draft from this past season right now, damn near every one of them are producing in some fashion. We mentioned Scorton, we mentioned Umanilin. I still don't know if I say his name right, but that's all I got.
Prinsley.
Etienne. Like I said, he's had some big runs in the last few weeks, but also it was nice to see the Panthers get any positive yardage on punt return and kick return this week. And so Mitchell Evans, a 6th-round pick we talked about, Jimmy Horn Jr. This draft from this past year, these kids are playing and they're bringing something to the table.
DJ, Hunter Renfrow, I believe, was a healthy scratch yesterday because of Jimmy Horn Jr. Because of what they've seen from him. And I can't remember if it was Mike K or Joe Purser, whoever was tweeted out, this wasn't as much a knock on Hunter Renfrow. This was just they're that excited and they want to see that from Jimmy Horn Jr. So that guy, put Hunter Renfrow a healthy scratch on the bench yesterday. So, and whether it's Frank will tell you this, Buck, Moose, whoever used to play the game will tell you, that's all great to hear coaches talk about culture and trying to change things. But at some point, you've got to see the results.
That's right.
It starts wearing on you. You're like,
100%.
I don't want to hear about it anymore. I want to see it. And I think you're starting to see that. Yes, this team hasn't arrived yet by any stretch of the imagination, but at least you see some, I see the vision here. I see some results starting to happen. And that's what as a fan, that's all you can ask for.
No doubt.
Yeah. I've said this for years. I know you've said this. If you're gonna suck or be good, just be entertaining. Be worth like I felt like when I walk out of the stadium or if I turn the TV off on a Sunday, I turn it off and go, you know what? I enjoyed watching that. That wasn't the worst thing I've ever watched. And the game yesterday was ugly, but defensively, if you're a Panther fan, how could you not be excited about what you've seen here?
No doubt. And listen, the Panthers right now, you're right. They certainly haven't arrived, but it's the first time after 7 games. Not only are they above 500 right now, they're right there in the wild card hunt. If Detroit loses and if Seattle were to lose tonight, I think they'd have the 7th spot by themselves. And again, I'm not saying they're going to the playoffs. Listen, their next 2 games, the Bills at home and then at Green Bay. So, if they could just scratch one of those out, not only would I be surprised, but I'd be elated. Then they get a home game against the Saints. But the schedule the rest of the way, you've got the Rams. I mean, you got the 49ers.
You haven't even seen
you
Tampa
have Seattle.
yet.
You have Tampa twice.
Yeah.
You also have the Saints twice, which have got to be 2 wins if you're
even go to Atlanta.
You got to go to Atlanta. So the schedule's not going to get easier. It's going to get tougher. But yes, as after 7 games, especially after the first 3 games where, we get in holes, we turn the ball over. We've seen progress, and like you said, as a fan of a team, that's all you can ask for. So we'll talk more about the Buffalo game Friday. We'll break it down. That's going to be a big task at hand, like you said, with them coming off a loss and a bye week. They've had 2 weeks to prepare. You can bet your bottom dollar that they've been working really hard on how they're going to stop this run game for the Panthers.
Yeah.
And so that'll be interesting. A lot of Bills fans at that game, but after 7 games, I think if you ask any Panther fan, would you take 4-3 after 7 games? I can't imagine that one fan would not say, "No, I ain't taking that."
Right?
Yeah, no, I'm not taking that.
Again, compared to that loss at New England, as ugly as that was, you'd absolutely sign up for 4-3 right now.
And look, New England now. I mean, look, that game was awful, but
that's not a bad loss.
They look to be pretty good. I mean, Drake May is playing as well as any quarterback right now, and I know a lot of people in Charlotte or in this area. I can't stand the Patriots, but I find myself wanting Drake to play well, and he's playing great. I mean, I don't know if you got to see that game yesterday, but he had a couple passes that were just perfect.
He's 4th in DraftKings MVP odds right now. He's 4th.
Wow.
Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, and then Drake May.
Wow.
Those are your top 4 right now.
Well, he's playing his butt off, and right now my vote would go to Baker Mayfield. But,
I'm with you. Pat Mahomes, I think, is the favorite because he's Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
He has not played better than Baker Mayfield this year.
No doubt. I mean, Baker has what?
You'll see Baker tonight on the national stage against the Lions.
And they've been banged up without receivers, without linemen, without running backs, and all he does is keep winning. Right. So, that ought to be a good game tonight. Before we go to college football, I do want to bring up one game yesterday, and Mark's a Redskin fan or whatever the hell they call themselves now.
I kind of phased myself out. I kind of wanting to phase back in, but after watching that yesterday, I don't know if I want to phase back in.
Yeah, and Jaden Daniels gets hurt with a pulled hamstring, but Dallas now is back in everybody's Super Bowl.
Yeah,
it's amazing how quickly the tide changes. Their defense still, to me, is a sieve. And if they had a healthy Jaden Daniels,
you got 3 top receivers were missing yesterday.
Exactly.
And I'm not making excuses. Dallas was better yesterday. They absolutely deserved to win, but. Yeah, we've seen their defense is terrible.
Not Super Bowl caliber. Their offense. Look, Dak Prescott. Speaking about MVP, that dude's playing great.
If he's not in your top 5, then I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, he's playing great.
His numbers, it's like damn Madden numbers he's putting up.
It is, and Pickens is making himself a lot of money.
CD's back.
CD yesterday had a huge game back, but you're right. Without McLaurin, without Deebo Sweeney in particular, 2 guys that are upper echelon receivers in the NFL, Washington was a bit undermanned. But the game that killed me. The game.
I thought about you too. I was like, oh no.
I'm a Giant fan as well as Panthers, and the Giants are as exciting to watch now they've been in years with Dart and Scattervoo and man, they're kicking Denver's butt on the road, which no one, including myself, thought they had a chance. They haven't given up a point in 5 straight quarters, I believe, maybe 6. Until the 4th quarter, where Denver goes and scores 33 points. And
I don't mean to laugh, but
listen, I've never seen anything like it.
No, I haven't either.
And the Giants kicker, who I can't imagine will be on the team in the next hour. I'm surprised they even let him fly on the plane with him. Misses 2 extra points that would have won. They would have won the game. The kid is a young kid. He's got a rocket foot. I don't know if you've seen videos when he was in college at Rutgers. He was kicking 71-yard field goals barefooted.
Yeah, and this is all because Graham Gano is hurt.
Graham Gano's hurt. But listen, the Giants have had kicker problems for years. Gano's always hurt. And they've had games where they had the punter kick because they weren't prepared.
I remember that.
So
the Gano, they had to bring in basically hurt. It was this year.
It was this year.
Where it's like Dable said, can you at least come out and kick a short field goal?
Yeah, and they should have did it yesterday because this kid missed 2 extra points that cost him the ball game, and it was the kicker, and I feel bad for him, but I'm sure he's going to have an NFL future because the dude's got a rocket leg, and a lot of kickers we know struggle early and then they come back and then they kick for 15 years.
Right.
But he went up to Dayball towards the end of the game or at the end of the game to tell him, "Hey, I'm sorry." And Dayball said, "I can't even look at you right now. Get away from me. I can't even look at you right now."
I didn't know if that was real.
Yeah,
but I guess it was. That's harsh, man. And that's rough.
It's rough. So that's the life of it. There's two things in life that you find out you need a good one when it's time, and that's a kicker and a lawyer. and you may not have either one, and then you realize you need it when you go, oh my God, I should have had a better lawyer. Oh my God, I need we need a better kicker. So that was one of the most epic comebacks I've ever seen in my life. Unfortunately, it was against my team, the Giants, but they still have a long way to go. Let's get into some college football. Some great games this weekend, some big matchups. More job openings. Florida wins a game and fires their coach, which shows you how competitive the head coaching market is going to be. Florida wanted to get out ahead of it, and even though they're 4-3 and they win the game, they see all these other openings out there with Penn State, Arkansas, UCLA. There's so many out there right now. They wanted to make sure that they're out there early enough to be engaged with who they want. Right now, Lane Kiffin appears to be the leader in the field house. I'm not sure if he'll leave Ole Miss for Florida, but even on FanDuel and DraftKings and things like that, he's plus 200 to be their next head coach. So there's a lot of smoke there. We know that Lane in his career has no problem packing up and moving from team to team. He does say he's extremely happy in Ole Miss, but it would be hard to turn down Florida. If I'm Florida, I'm calling Urban Meyer and I'm saying, do you want to coach anymore? And if you do, write your check, because one thing about Urban, I can't stand Urban Meyer, but when it comes to coaching college football, the dude just wins national championships.
Yeah. And you wonder, would they call James Franklin? See, he obviously said Saturday on game day he wants to get back into coaching. It doesn't sound like he is a guy that is willing to sit out a year, and he would love to jump back in it next year. Yep. I fully expect him to be somewhere next year. I don't know where that's going to be, but it's hard to imagine a coach being fired after they won a game. And it's almost like Billy Napier knew Saturday night he was gone, because after the game, basically when everybody cleared out, he came back onto the field and just looked around like he knew what was going to happen yesterday. And you mentioned Florida. For the life of me, believe me, I hear this 5-6 times a day. I don't understand how Luke Fickell hasn't been fired at Wisconsin
yet.
I
don't either.
He is single-handedly, it feels like, run that program into a spot that nobody ever thought they would see. It's just they're a laughing stock right now. So I don't understand.
Which is crazy too, because Fickell he's a damn good football
coach. And I
raised
my hand, DJ, when they hired him. I remember exactly where I was. It was at a Panther game. It was right before kickoff, and I saw on my phone, Wisconsin is about to hire Luke Fickell. I said, that's a great hire.
I agree with you.
We saw the job he did at Cincinnati. I was like, that's a home run hire.
Yep.
I was so wrong. I was completely obviously wrong about that one, but that's a job you figure is going to open. There's scuttlebutt that Shane Beamer is Virginia Tech's first choice. Mm-hmm. He would go back and coach where his dad coached. He keeps saying the same thing about he's happy at South Carolina. I don't know if South Carolina's happy with Shane Beamer.
South Carolina.
It may be a deal where he gets out before they get him.
Yep.
So that there are going to be more job openings. You mentioned the ones we've already seen, but this is going to be one of the craziest coaching carousels I think we've ever seen in college football.
I agree. And I'll tell you, bringing up James Franklin, who everyone knows he can recruit, and I think he's a good coach. He has a hard time winning big games. And that's the killer, right? I mean, that's the killer. Yeah. But I think he would be a perfect fit. And I'm not saying he would go to either one of these schools, and neither one of these jobs are open yet. But if you're NC State or North Carolina, to me, he would be a perfect fit, because at NC State, North Carolina, the fans are not crazy enough to think they're going to win a national championship. I'm not saying that the things couldn't align correctly, but at those two schools, winning 9 or 10 games, making a good bowl game, maybe getting into the playoffs here and there. Because listen, the ACC, we saw Miami lose to Louisville this week. Clemson's down. The ACC is a lot easier to achieve that goal than it is the SEC. In particular, I think he would be a great hire for either Carolina or NC State if those jobs were to open.
Yeah, and DJ, you mentioned NC State fans. They, I think, would just love to feel like they can compete for an ACC championship, which Dave Doran hasn't sniffed in his years in Raleigh. And there's a lot of people think that, at the end of this year, there'd been some scuttlebutt before the season even started that he might retire after this season. There's certainly now, does NC State make a move? Because you look at their schedule, it's hard to think they're going to win any more games this year. But yeah, I think either one of those jobs would be interesting. Obviously, you're going to have to pay James Franklin a lot of money. And it goes back to commitment. How North Carolina, I believe, acts like they're committed to football. They tried that with Bill Belichick. Obviously, that's not working out. They lost again at Cal the other night. And NC State, I just think that one's run its course with Dave Doran. I don't think they can go any higher echelon than what we've already seen.
Yeah, and NC State, look, they committed to basketball with Will Wade, and we've already seen, at least on paper, he seems to have put together a squad. So I think they would commit to football. Again, James Franklin is going to get paid. I mean, there's no way he's going to take a job and give up the $49 million that he's owed from Penn State without being able to recoup a lot of that. But I think he would be a great hire at either one of those schools for what they're looking for, because he does win at his programs. He just tends to not win the big game. So
and this year, obviously, the worst case scenario is you lose at home to Oregon, which there's no real shame in that. But when you go out to UCLA and they beat you after they had just fired your coach, and then you lose the game you were at against Northwestern. And then they lost again Saturday night at Iowa. So that was obviously without James Franklin, but and
now they have Ohio State coming to town this week, which their fans were so pumped with. They're not pumped anymore. A couple other games in college that I thought were pretty interesting or entertaining, and we'll start with the best game of the day, in my opinion, which was Ole Miss at Georgia. Ole Miss seems to be the same team every year where they're going to score points, and their quarterback story is just a great story. The kid wasn't even recruited, and then now we see he's playing his butt off. Lane Kiffin, in my opinion, is the best offensive mind in college football. Wherever he's been along the way, not only do their offenses perform, but the coaches that he coaches with, including a Nick Saban, talk about how he's just a genius when it comes to offensive football.
Did you see the play ended up being a touchdown? Ole Miss, and Lane Kiffin saw something on the defense for Georgia. He's over there trying to get the quarterback's attention doing this. He's giving a signal like, hey, you got a touchdown here if you see it. Luckily, his quarterback saw it, and they got a long touchdown. But nobody's ever going to argue with Lane Kiffin doesn't know what he's doing when it comes to offense.
Exactly. Now, if he could just get the defense, and that's the thing. Georgia, they had a close loss to Alabama at home. But this game looked more like the Georgia we're used to seeing. And Ole Miss's defense just still isn't up to where it needs to be. At Florida, if Lane Kiffin were to take that job, who knows what players will stay, but they've got a damn good defense, and he's gonna figure it out on offense. So I thought that game was great. Georgia, to me, like I said, looks like a national championship contender now. Even in the game against Alabama, I felt that we saw enough to know that they're probably one of the top 4 or 5 teams that we would put into that.
I guess my question would be, believe it or not, even with Kirby Smart at coach, you mentioned Georgia's defense.
It's not been good.
They get matched up in a playoff game against an Indiana, Ohio State, somebody that can put points up. Can Georgia outscore somebody?
Yeah.
Obviously, they did Saturday against Ole Miss, but that's kind of how you feel like Georgia is going to win these days. They're not going to go out there and win 23-20. They're going to win 47-41 or whatever it might be.
Which is interesting, because one thing about Kirby Smart, it seems that as good of a coach he is, one of the things that I always felt that he was better than the rest was when his halftime adjustments. If his defense in the second half usually was pretty much shut down defense. Right. And this year that hasn't been the case.
And they did that against Alabama. Remember, Alabama didn't score a point in the second half, but had scored enough in the first half they still won. Yeah.
And to again, Ole Miss has got a great offense. They do every year. So maybe that's got a lot to do with it. But I do feel like this year his second half adjustments and it's got to be players, right? I mean, we know that the dude can coach. Notre Dame, Southern Cal.
I know you enjoyed that one.
I enjoyed that one. Notre Dame came in as a 9.5-point favorite. But we saw kind of what Notre Dame is this year. Their defense is not as good as it was last year. They give up some points. They give up some big plays. And CJ Carr, who I think is going to be a very good quarterback, and I think has had a really good freshman year, but he had a bad game.
Yeah, he wasn't great.
That was his first.
But
bad
you know
game.
what was great? That damn running game.
That running game, man.
Jeremiah Love should be in New York. I don't know if he's going to be for the Heisman. It's all about quarterbacks these days.
Yep.
But that dude, you can't tell me he's not one of the best sport players in football.
I agree. Let me tell you something. Price would start on every other. I mean,
yes.
they've got the best running back room in college football, and you're right. And today I was looking at the Heisman hopefuls, and Jeremiah Love was ranked 5th right now. So but quarterbacks in front of him. But I think you're right. He's got to be in that room. And the Heisman to me, I don't really care about it anymore because it has become quarterback central pretty much. But yeah, you're right. That kid's unbelievable. He's going to be the first running back taken in the draft for sure. And I think Price is not going to be too far behind him because that kid is a beast. But Notre Dame gets a big win against Southern Cal, and Notre Dame losing 2 games early to Texas A&M, who's still unbeaten, to Miami, who I still think is a lot better than what we saw at Louisville.
They did what Miami does. They find a way to lose to somebody they shouldn't.
No doubt about it. And they lose to Louisville, but they lost those 2 games, and now Notre Dame doesn't have another ranked opponent on their schedule for the rest of the season unless Navy stays ranked, which we'll see.
Right.
And Navy always plays Notre Dame well anyway, but Notre Dame, I think if they win out, will be in the playoffs, not only because they'll have only 2 losses, but also because they're Notre Dame. And if you're going to compare them to other teams with 2 losses, I think they're going to get the nod. Yeah,
because we talked about it last week. That was an elimination game Saturday night. Whoever lost that game was probably going to be out.
Yep.
Particularly Notre Dame, because they just don't have a championship game avenue to take.
Yep.
USC, I guess technically still does in the Big Ten, but it's hard to think that with that loss that they're going to be able to get in. But no, that running game by Notre Dame, particularly with the rain and everything the other night, man, that was impressive.
Tennessee, Alabama, Tennessee another team that can score points. Alabama, after losing to Florida State game 1, has figured it out. They've looked a lot different. Their running back coming back after the 3rd game, I think, has a lot to do with that. Their quarterback has, I remember the first couple games of the year just saying, I don't know if I can trust this kid because I don't know enough about him. And all he's done is now he's the leader in the clubhouse for the Heisman. He's got a rocket arm and obviously weapons everywhere. And Alabama right now, when you look at college football and you say what teams can win the national championship, I think it's as wide open as it's been in a long time. Ohio State, to me at least, has by far the best defense in the country. I don't care who they're playing.
Right.
Their defense is legit. It's full of future NFL.
That's an NFL defense.
No question.
Right now.
And now their quarterback starting to figure it out. I wondered, would they be able to score enough points playing a team like Georgia or Alabama? Yep. But he's starting to figure out. And Ryan Day, being the offensive guy that he is probably going to continue to improve as they move forward. Their schedule isn't brutal by the rest of the way, especially now that Penn State doesn't look good. Michigan, I can't see Michigan scoring many points against Ohio State, especially if they can shut down the run. But to me, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, and Texas A&M are the 4 teams that I think you would put in the top 4, but you could still make an argument for an Indiana.
Yeah.
And there's several other teams that you can make an argument with that might have a shot, but I think it's pretty wide open this year.
That Alabama game ended at the end of the first half when Joey Aguilar threw that pick 6. That was a ball game.
That was it.
And I told people that I know that root for Tennessee in the offseason when they got Joey Aguilar, believe me, I saw him at App State. He will make throws. He will do things that get you excited, and you go, man, I like Joey Aguilar. I think he's a good quarterback.
Yep.
But unfortunately, he will make a throw or two in a game that either will cost you a game or you just leave you scratching your head. And that, unfortunately, that to me ended that game the other night when he threw that pick 6 for the first half in. But yeah, Bama, it's amazing to think where we were with Kalen DeBose after they lost to Florida State.
Yeah.
People were talking about, hey, could he be one of these coaches that's going to get fired during the season?
Yep.
And now here we are towards the end of October, and we're talking Alabama is looks like they're heading to the playoff, and how much of a factor to win the whole thing could they be?
Yeah, and it's funny you brought Aguilar. I mentioned that on the show Friday. I said, I think Tennessee's going to be able to score enough points to cover the 10 points or 8.5 points. I was wrong, but I said the thing that does scare me about that is you can write down that he's going to throw an interception or 2. It's just what he does. I think he had 18 his last year at App State. Yeah. This year, I think he's already probably closer to 9 or 10.
He's a gunslinger.
He's a gunslinger.
He will make throws that make you go, wow. And he will make throws that make you go, why did you do that?
And they were on the 5-yard line going in to score,
right?
Yeah, that was a killer. Speaking of gunslingers, I don't know if there's a better gunslinger in college football right now than our boy Pavea from Vanderbilt.
Oh, man.
And LSU goes to Vandy. Brian Kelly, speaking of another job that might be open,
yep.
I mean, I don't see how he stays.
Yep.
I know these buyouts are ridiculous, but, you know, a guy that hasn't been able to win big games at LSU, he goes into Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is certainly not a walkover team anymore. They're in every game. Their quarterback.
They're top 10 now.
Top 10, which is unbelievable, right? And Pavea is just, he reminds me of Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
He's a leader.
He's got that swagger.
He's tough. He's got swag. There's times where, you know, look, if my team was playing against Vandy, I would hate him.
Right.
You know, I'm like, oh, I hope they hit this dude so hard and shut him up.
There's a reason Johnny Manziel has gravitated towards this guy, because I think Johnny Manziel says, that's me.
Yeah.
That kid reminds me of myself.
No doubt. And, you know, he's been in college for 16 years and he actually, I think, has applied for one more year in the NCAA. So it'd be interesting to see if he gets it. But what a job they're doing.
They got game day coming to Nashville.
Yep.
Saturday when they play Missouri.
Exactly. And Missouri's another good story.
Yep.
You know, they lose their starting quarterback and go to their backup. And guess what? Their backup transferred from Penn State. They would love to have him starting right now when Drew Aller got hurt. And they snuck by this weekend, and he's another one of those gunslingers, scrappy kind of swag guys.
The funniest thing, I don't know if you saw it. I was actually watching that the game at the end and then in overtime. Eli Drinkwitz thought they made a field goal to win the game, so he starts jogging out the midfield to shake hands, and then he realizes, oh, damn, he missed it. So they have to go to overtime. They eventually do win, but yeah, that's going to be quite. I don't know if anybody had Vanderbilt, Missouri on their docket when the season started as a big game. But we got a big game in Nashville,
no doubt,
Saturday, and it was funny though. I'm watching that game, and it felt like kind of a neutral site game because there was as many LSU fans as there were for Vanderbilt. They still don't have that following, and of course they're a smaller school than these other schools. But they're a great story, man. And that's a guy, DJ. You talk about coaches, Clark Lee.
Yep.
Clark Lee is a guy that I got to believe his phone is going to start ringing off the hook. His agent is going to be in a good spot. I don't know who his agent is. I don't know if it's Jimmy Sexton, but man, you talk about a coach that is in line to make some money. We saw Kurt Cignetti get paid last week.
Yep.
Clark Lee's going to get paid, whether Vanderbilt's going to have to fork up the money or somebody else, Penn State, somebody's going to call him and say, what's it going to take?
And, you know, that could be another deal where if he did leave for another job, that could be an interesting story. Does Franklin go back to Vandy where he had very good success? It's
a trickle-down effect. These jobs, DJ, it really is a domino effect. One guy like Beamer leaves to go to Virginia Tech. South Carolina job becomes open. It's amazing that one guy could start the whole process of what's going to happen.
And, you know, naming the coaching hunt that keeps coming up, and I think it would be fascinating if he gets a job. And I think he's probably going to get a job. He says he's got a banker worth $12 billion that's going to help support wherever he goes, is John Gruden.
Yes, and it's funny. Well, my wife, huge Wisconsin fan, she's already said, sign me up for John. If you're Wisconsin, I would call him and say, what's it going to take to get you here? But that's a guy I fully expect. I don't know if it's ever going to happen in the NFL again, but I would be shocked if he's not coaching in college next
I would too. And if you're a team like Arkansas, like I could see Florida, you know, Florida is in a position where I don't think they can take a chance on a first-time college coach, especially after we've seen what's happened with Belichick. But if you're an Arkansas or a team like that, or if a South Carolina job came open, I think it's worth rolling the dice because you know the dude can coach.
Yeah, we saw Lou Holtz come back to coaching at South Carolina. Spurrier came back at South Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, you know the guy can coach. The young kids all know who he is from his time on TV and in commercials and now on Barstool Sports. So he still has a brand with the younger generation, and he wants to coach. I mean, he's adamant about wanting to coach again. So his name's going to be one that's going to be pretty interesting to follow. Like I said, I don't think he's a fit for Florida because I just don't see them bringing in a first-time college head coach. But I think at some of these other schools that like Arkansas, or if a South Carolina opens up, I think he'd be worth rolling the dice. And South Carolina, you know, what a disappointing season.
One of the most disappointing teams in the country. Lenora Sellers, it has not happened this year. I watched some of that game against Oklahoma, and they look outmanned, man. They
can't run the ball at all.
No, offensively they're lost.
The play calling to me makes no sense. You know, Shula and you know, every press conference after a game, you know, Beamer's getting asked about Shula, and are you going to get a new offensive coordinator? And he has his back continuously. But something's just not right. When you can't run the ball, first of all, that's an issue, and they can't run the ball. And when your quarterback's the guy that can run the ball, but they seem to want to protect him so much.
Yeah,
they've got receivers who can run as fast as anybody, but they're not the best route runners. They're not where they're supposed to be quite often. So that's been a huge disappointment this year.
Yeah, because DJ, remember last year, they were really one win away from being in the playoff. There were people who thought they should have been in the playoff.
They should have. They got screwed against LSU. I thought
the expectations coming into this year were not only for them as a team, but you mentioned Lenore Sellers. He was a Heisman candidate. People were talking about how good he could be at the next level and all that. Man, it has gone south in a hurry for them this year.
And speaking of South, another team that is just fun to watch, very well coached, and has a stud at quarterback is Georgia Tech, who went on the road to Duke and handled them pretty easily. Duke's a nice story. I think what they're doing there is going to pay off in the long run.
Yeah, Duke killed themselves.
They killed themselves.
Turnovers
will kill you. But Georgia Tech, that quarterback's another one. Man.
Haynes King, man, I love watching him.
Me too.
He is a quarterback with a linebacker mentality.
Yep.
He's not afraid of taking on, tacklers and stuff. He wants the contact, which, if you're Brett Key, you're probably hoping, hey man, be smart about it. But that's just the way he plays. You can't change the way he plays, man. He won't kill you with his arm, but man, what he does with his legs is just that they've got that. Kids use this all the time. We hear it, dog mentality.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech's just got that dog, man.
Yep.
But Brett Key's got it. Haynes King has it. That defense has it.
Yep.
And they're certainly a team you got to think is going to end up in Charlotte for the ACC championship, and they could be in the playoffs.
Yeah, and they're at Syracuse this week, which they should handle, although we've seen Syracuse, upset some teams like Clemson, who my Clemson not making a bowl game is that prediction is looking pretty good.
Absolutely.
Right now. I mean, they take another one on the chin, with a backup quarterback. The receiver drops a wide open bomb right in his hands. And they were there fighting along the way. So I'll give Clemson and Dabo credit. I mean, the team hasn't quit for sure, but man, what a struggle this has been for Clemson.
I'm stunned that we're sitting here talking about a Clemson team that you said it is a legit question now about them getting to a bowl game, and go back to expectations of the season start. We talked about with South Carolina. Clemson certainly had that. And again, Cade Klubnik expectations were high. Heisman talk, where he's going to go in the draft next year. Clemson in the playoff. Could they be a national title contender? And all that's out the window now. And you're just wondering, are they going to make the Frankie's Liver Mush Bowl at this point?
Right. And listen, a lot of the analysts had Clemson as their national champion this year. They were supposed to have the best defensive line in college football. Klubnik, had a good year last year, so people thought he was going to take another step, and it just hasn't happened. And that Clemson South Carolina game here in about a month is going to be. I mean, it should be a good game at least. Yeah, it should be a good game. It's two teams that are struggling.
Somebody's got to win.
Somebody's got to win. I mean, man, maybe it would be. Well, they don't tie anymore.
Right.
It could be like an 18 overtime.
It could be
game. But let's talk about tonight real quick. We've got two NFL games: Tampa Bay and Detroit, which. Detroit's a 6.5-point favorite. Detroit at home are always, tough to deal with. They're banged up in the secondary. We saw Kansas City take advantage of that last week against them. But at home, they tend to score a ton of points. Tampa coming in. Looks like Mike Evans is going to be back. Looks like Ibuka is going to be back. So he's going to have those weapons. Bucky Irvin, I'm not sure if he's playing or not. But
I think he's still out.
I think he still might be out. But he does get his receivers back. Tampa's defense has been playing lights out. It'll be a tough matchup for sure, but it's a game that I'm excited to watch. And then you got Houston at Seattle. Seattle's been one of the great stories this year. Seattle.
They've been so good on the road too.
Exactly, and they've had to travel to the East Coast a couple times, and they've got wins. One at Jacksonville in particular. But they're at home against Houston Texans, who Texans have kind of figured it out after a slow start. Their defense is legit. They get after the quarterback. Their offense has not really found its stride yet, but they've done enough to win games, and that should be another good game. I think we got two good Monday Night Football games tonight. But the one I'm excited about tonight, and we don't talk baseball.
Game 7.
Game 7. Seattle at Toronto. This has been a very entertaining series. a lot of runs scored, a lot of big hits, grand slams, whatever you want to call it. And being a baseball purist, and I know you are too, I love game sevens. I love it. And tonight I will be in front of the TV. I'll probably have the football on one and the baseball on the big one. But both these teams to me are built the way I like a baseball team to be built. They're scrappy. They've got the fat guys, the skinny guys, the mustache guys, the long-haired guys. And Seattle's never been to a World Series ever. So, they're one win away from making their first World Series. I'm not sure it matters who wins because the Dodgers are going to be sitting there with their $1 billion payroll and their Ohtani as fourth starter, which by the way, best performance I've ever seen by a baseball player the other night.
Yeah, look, obviously at my house, it was, my wife had been pretty much resigned by game 4 that what was going to happen.
Yeah.
That was tough for her to watch. But no, look, it's nice when you can go by your starting rotation, which they did. You can go get a Shohei Ohtani. Hell, I saw they're going to go after Kyle Tucker in the offseason. Of course they are. Why wouldn't they? The Dodgers would get anybody. But that performance was ridiculous. We saw from Ohtani. You talk about old school baseball and these two teams. DJ, my favorite part of these playoffs happened last week. Max Scherzer was pitching for Toronto, and the manager went out with every intention of taking him out of the game. And he basically just said, I'm not coming out of this game.
Yeah.
I'm staying in. And he, Judge Schneider, turned around and walked back to the dugout. That's old school baseball, man. I hate the way pitchers are used now, particularly starting pitchers. I love that Max Scherzer said, I'm not coming out of this game. I'm staying in here.
And listen, Scherzer, is 41 years old. Future Hall of Famer for
sure.
You
might see him tonight. Anybody could pitch tonight.
Exactly.
In game 7.
Bieber's going to start, but you're right. I mean, in the game 7, they're going to leave it all on the field. So you probably will see 6 or 7 or 8 pitchers in there. And Scherzer, who I've always loved, and he was on my Mets for a while and it didn't go so well, but I just love the way he approaches the game. He was getting rocked his last 5 or 6 starts. I mean, I think his ERA was like 7. But for him to come in there and the first inning, he struggled a little bit and you're wondering, oh man, are they going to get to him? But he got through it. And then after that, man, he was dialed in.
He's a throwback. He's a throwback. And I say this a lot. I would love to see if the way they handle these pitchers now, if somebody had gone down to the mound to Bob Gibson or Don Drysdale and said, we're pulling you after 2 innings in the playoff game, they would have done what Max Scherzer said, get your back to the dugout.
And guess what? And the other thing too is I give the manager credit on that because look, when you're the leader of a team, you're the manager of a team, and the guy's yelling at you that he's not coming out. Number one, it's just natural to think about your image. First of all, in any business, if you're the boss and somebody's yelling at you to not do what you want in front of much less millions of people, that is an ego pride thing. But for him to sit there and talk to him and then say, all right, let's do it.
But you also know that's a guy I want. That's a guy.
100%.
That's a guy that I can go to battle with. 100%. A guy who doesn't want to come out of the game like 100%.
And I think both managers in this series have that in them. Like I think the players trust them. And I'm really excited to see this game tonight. I hope it's a closer game than what we saw last night. But Vlad Guerrero is putting on a performance for the ages. And the Mariners left bases loaded twice last night, which they can't do tonight if they're going to win this ball game. But I do expect to see a lot of pitchers in this game. Kirby starting for Seattle has a 7 ERA so far in the playoffs. Bieber's a little over 4. Bieber's a former Cy Young winner. He missed the season, so he's still getting back into shape. So if I had to bet, and I'm sure I will, I would lean towards Bieber. But man, Seattle just isn't going to go out easy. I'll tell you that.
These are the games. You mentioned Ohtani. We saw that from him Friday night. But these are the games where your stars shine. And this is a game where you expect, can Cal Raleigh do something big? For my money, he's the MVP just because of the position he plays and what he's been able to do.
I agree.
No offense to Aaron Judge, but to me, Cal Raleigh's the MVP in the American League. But whether it's Vlad, whether it's Cal Raleigh, it could be somebody that hasn't done anything all series tonight. But that's what makes Game 7s great is just you got one shot. It doesn't matter what's happened in the other 6 games. Can you win tonight?
And Cal Raleigh last night hit into a huge double play with bases loaded.
Right.
But I agree with you, by the way. I mean, Aaron Judge, the season he had this year was incredible. And I think any other year he's walking to the MVP. But with Cal Raleigh hitting over 60 homers, switch hitter,
catcher,
and catcher, and not only a catcher, a Gold Glove catcher.
Yes, right.
And the wear and tear that takes on your body. I agree with you. I think he's the MVP, and I don't know if he'll win it. New York's a big market,
sure.
and we'll see. But and if he doesn't win it, like I said, I wouldn't be angry because I think Aaron Judge's numbers were spectacular. But I agree with you. I think if I was voting, Cal Raleigh would be my bet. Or my pick. 2 football games tonight, a game 7 tonight. The World Series will start Friday, regardless of who wins the game tonight. We'll be back Friday talking Buffalo and the Panthers as well as the other NFL games. And there's some good college matchups this weekend. Texas A&M goes to LSU. Alabama goes to South Carolina, which I don't know if that's a good matchup, but it's at least local. Georgia, Florida, world's biggest tailgate this weekend. Ole Miss at Oklahoma. And then the one that you alluded to, Missouri, Vandy, which is probably the one I'm most excited to watch. So great card of games this weekend. Hope you have a great week. We'll see you Friday. Thanks, Big D, by the way. I always forget to thank Big D. Thanks, Big D over there. Our executive producer does a great job, and I write it down and I still forget it. But thank you, Big D. Have a good week.